What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Teacher on Duty Online Media. And today, I am so happy to welcome you to our today's concern. Before I head on with our today's concern, I wish to remind those who have not subscribed to this YouTube channel for them to do so that we move ahead and updated with some lessons posted on this channel. Well, our today's concern centers on the analysis of the poem The Louse in the Head, the poem written by Tanzanian author Charles Mloka. Before we continue, as far as the poem's title, The Louse in the Head. What is the louse? Well, the louse is a very small insect that lives on the bodies or in the hair of people, animals, and birds. Such a small insect is parasitic in nature. How? How parasitic? It feeds on human, animal, or bird's blood. Having clarified briefly on the title of this poem, I wish to talk a bit about the writer of this poem, who is Charles Joseph Mloka. Well, Charles Joseph Mloka was born in Arusha, Tanzania in 1957. Charles Mloka holds a certificate in law, a diploma in law, and a bachelor and a master of law degrees from the University of Dar es Salaam. Before starting reading this poem, I wish to tell briefly where does this poem emanate from. Well, this poem is an extract from the poetry book The Wonderful Surgeon, the poetry book written by Charles Mloka himself. So, as far as Tanzanian education is concerned, this poem comes from Poetry Collection, The Wonderful Surgeon, as a set book in Tanzanian advanced level education in English language. So, I hereby warmly welcome both teachers and students who take English language and those who teach English language, and I am sure that this lesson is going to be of the highest beneficial. Well, the poem reads, The louse in the head, he though shaves the head. Don't think of a frog, in the wall she resides. Don't even think the bedbug in the barber. When the gum aches, the poison is in the mouth. If the toilet stinks, the fly is around. The louse is the resident, the neighbor you call. This is stanza 1. Stanza 2 reads, and this is the last stanza as far as the structure of this poem is concerned. Thread him down once, in your head you find, even if in cloth he hides quickly minds. The more you wait, the more rashes you get. The more you live, the more blood you ooze. The louse in your head, your barber is. This marks the end of the poem, and may I take you to the second part of this program. And this is the analysis of this poem. Well, welcome to the introductory remarks of this poem. The poem, The Louse in the Head, was composed on 31st of March 2004. This poem is very artistically molded in that the word louse is a symbol standing for a friend whom you trust only to discover that it is this person who is your worst enemy. So this poem acts as a warning to people for them to be careful with their friends. Why? It is because some of the friends are normally enemies in disguise. And this poem is a kind reminder of the Swahili common adage that says, Kikulacho kingoni mako. So you are warned not to trust anybody. The very close friend can turn into an enemy in disguise. The title of this poem. The title of this poem is symbolic. How? This title consists of words which mean something other than the ordinary louse as we know. In Kiswahili, once again, there is a common saying that says, Kikulacho nguoni mwako, which means that something that eats you is actually hidden in your clothes. It is a lice which hides in people's clothes. So, the poet has used the phrase the louse in the head to show that something that causes harm actually to you is found within your premises. It is found within your zero proximity. That may imply that a person who knows you very well is the one who can cause harm to you. So we must be careful with people who seem to be very closer to us. They can eventually turn into noble enemies. Therefore, it is doubtless to comment that the title of this poem relates to the content of the poem. What is the type of this poem? This poem is didactic of its kind. How? It gives instruction to the reader so that the reader may be careful with his or her friends, bearing in mind that some friends are actually enemies in disguise. What is the language used in this poem? The writer has made the use of artistic language, specifically symbolic one, and it contains a number of figures of speech that carry message across. Dear listeners, the dominant figure of speech is symbolism. There are a number of symbols used in the poem. For instance, the word louse has been used to symbolize an enemy of the addressee. The word bedbug symbolizes a person causing harm to the person's address. Other figures of speech on the other side include analog. What is an analog as a figure of speech? Well, It is a figure of speech that compares two objects which are different but have at least one common quality. In the poem, the aching of the gum, showing there is poison in the mouth, and the stinking toilet, showing the presence of a fly, have been compared with the relationship between the persona's address, the persona's addressee, and his or her neighbor. This analog generally means it is by being close that people may harm each other. Another figure of speech used is imagery, when the persona states, the more him you live, the more blood you owes. This is an image of sight because it can make you imagine seeing blood coming out of the person's body. Another image states, if the toilet stinks, the fly is around. If the toilet stinks, the fly is around. This is olfactory image, which is an image of smell due to the use of the word stink. Another figure of speech is personification, when the persona states, the louse in the head, he though shaves the head. The louse has been personified here with the human attributes of shaving people's heads. Even if in cloth he hides quickly, minds hiding. It is all about people's or human beings' attributes that has been associated with the louse. Metaphor has also been used when the persona states, the louse in your head, your barber is. Directly, the louse has been compared to a barber that shaves people's head. Some other poetic devices used, specifically some poetic sound devices or musical features, include alliteration, when the persona states, thread him down, once in your head you find. The constant sound has been repeated in this verse. Assonance, when the persona states, the louse is the resident, the neighbor you call. This is the repetition of the vowel sound A. Anaphora has also been used, which is the repetition of the same phrases at the beginning of consecutive verses from emphasis. When the poet says, the more you wait, the more rushes you get. The more him you live, the more blood you owes. Parallelism has also been used, which is the similarity of sentence structure in a poem, when the writer says, the more you wait, the more rushes you get. The more him you live, the more blood you owes. Consonance has also been used. The more you wait, the more rushes you get. The consonant sound T. Repetition has also been used. Words like the louse, head, and barber have been repeated, mainly for emphasis. What is the tone of this poem? Well, the voice quality of the persona in this poem seems to be very sympathetic with the addressee of the poem because of the situation in which the addressee is. Therefore, the persona has a sympathetic tone, mainly to some harmful effects caused by the louse to the addressee. What are the possible themes to be extracted from this poem? Well, the possible theme to be extracted, the first one is how to identify an enemy. The persona tells us that if we are to identify our enemies, we should begin our investigation with our neighbors or friends, or those who are closer to us. It is the person who knows you well who can harm you. Another theme is a theme of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy can also be identified from this poem. The addressee's enemy is his or her neighbor or friend, and the persona eventually suffers. That means these friends or neighbors pretend to be good while they are not. That is to say, they preach water while they are taking wine. They pretend to be good, to be kind, while they are causing harm in the back. Another possible theme is a theme of problem solving. This poem is advising us to solve our problems as early as possible before they grow into bigger ones. When the persona says, the more you wait, the rushes you get. The more him you leave, the more blood you owes. What are the messages to be obtained from this poem? Messages and lessons. Well, we should not trust every person, because even people whom you call neighbors or friends may be your enemies in disguise. Another possible message states, hypocrisy is the source of conflict and disappointment. But also, the lesson carried on through this poem is we should solve our problems as early as possible. Dear listeners, is this poem relevant to today's Tanzania? You can have a discussion on it to see if what has been depicted by the writer actually is found in the contemporary society, especially the Tanzanian society. Is hypocrisy there? Is disappointment there? Is awareness there? And so on. Well, lastly, dear listeners, let us briefly discuss on the success of the poet. The poet has been well composed. The poem itself has been well composed and artistically presented. Themes depicted are relevant to what is happening in the contemporary society. However, the poet is so philosophical to be understood. This might be his noble weakness. Thank you very much for your attention, and this marks the end of today's lesson. Welcome once again. Keep on remaining here for more and more lessons. Bye.